What's happening, folks? Sean the Average Angler back at you with another video. Hopefully I'm sounding a little better. Not feeling any better, but hopefully I'm sounding a little bit better. Yesterday they gave me some medication, so now I'm on this stuff that's supposed to make you better faster. Today we are going to talk about our early springtime glide baits. And hey, we may as well just work it into spring. Basically, we're going to cover this in two categories. We got natural lakes, such as Clear Lake, and there's plenty around the country, I'm sure. And then we have highland reservoirs, or just reservoirs in general. One lake I can think of that's kind of an outlier is Berryessa. And it has the attributes of both in a lot of ways, which is one of the things I just love about Berryessa. First, let's talk glide baits. Glide baits are big, wide, meandering, S-waving, hence the S-waver, or the ever popular, this is a Depths Slide Swimmer 250. This bait has drawing power like nobody's business. I mean, it'll draw fish from a long ways away in clear water. And by the way, this is pretty much a clear water color. You'll see it's transparent. You see my finger moving behind there. And I'm pretty sure that's an IU color of some sort. I couldn't tell you because it's in Japanese. But that looks like some sort of IU color to me. But you don't have to splurge because this is going to require specialty rod. Really should require specialty reel, but there are some alternatives, such as the Slide Swimmer 175. Pretty similar to the bait I showed you in that Gan Craft, size-wise, right? Pretty close. Wish I had one more hand so I wasn't blocking the camera. But let's just get a weight on this, because I will tell you, 2.8 ounces. Bingo. 2.9. Reweigh. 2.9. All right. This is what I'm going to tell you. You don't necessarily need a specialty swim bait rod for a bait 3 ounces and under. And why that's important is it covers a whole lot of them. Okay. The Gan Craft, for instance. The Shad. That's what I was thinking about. It was the Shad. But those are, and for that matter, the Baitsanity Chimera Shad here, which quite honestly is the one I like the best. I think they have the best colors right now. There may be more coming from other companies, but those are different types of glides. And this is how you can tell. Jointed claw, the Slide Swimmers, and the Baitsanity Explorer gill, quite honestly, to me, is probably one of the best gliders, pure gliders, you know, where you chunk and wind, and it gets that big wide kick going. Now, why is that important? Well, because you're covering water. And this is how you can tell the baits apart. See the angle of the dangle, right? The more that kicks over, the sharper it will turn. With the Slide Swimmer, you can just chunk it out and then wind it in at a slow wind, and it'll kind of get going back and forth real nice like. Now the Chimera Shad will do that a little bit, but not to the scale of the Slide Swimmer or the Explorer gill or even the Gan Craft. The thing I really like about the Gan Craft is the shape. Okay, and these are all pretty similar shape, but this one just has that narrower top to bottom. Makes it easier for the fish to eat. Where am I going to throw the glides? And this would also include the S-Waver 168, the S-Waver 200. And this is what I will warn you about. The S-Waver is a great bait. Shouldn't say warn you about. But if you're going to buy the 168 and expect it to do a nice wide glide, it just doesn't do it. It's a much more tighter, it's still an S-Waver. That's why it's called an S-Waver. You get into the bigger sizes, they get much wider. The reason you want to do that is because you're covering water. So in clear water, we use these big S-glides to draw fish. The clearer the water, the better they can see it, the further away they will come. Now, generally, the bigger baits have the biggest drawing power. Doesn't mean they're going to eat it, but they are often curious enough to want to come over and look at it. That said, these could be a very, very good pre-fish bait or practice bait to let you know that there's fish in the area. Just be aware that if you pull them off of where they were at with this, they may not be there to bite in 5 or 10 minutes. Okay? It might be a little bit before they get set back up. Like I said, I like it as a pre-fish bait and just a bait to fish in general. These types of baits I would use on both reservoirs. I really just split them up in the video so that I wasn't overcrowding. So those are our glides. This is a Chimera shad. Okay, very similar to that of a KGB shad. Those are going to be more of what we call, now the G-Ratt will S-wave when you find the right cadence, and as long as you don't overpower the line. It's really kind of more of a cover glide for bass. A cover glide is meant to move but stay in the strike zone. So say maybe you're fishing over the top of a treetop. You see some suspended fish in it. Maybe you're fishing under a dock. Well, folks, we're getting awful close to 3,100 subscribers. I'd really like to bump that number up. We've been lacking a little bit on the subscriber count lately. Probably my fault, being sick, not really putting much energy into the video. But anyway, sometimes we just need to be reminded. If you enjoy the content, subscribe down below. It really helps the channel, and it's free. Appreciate you. You can get a lot of side-to-side chops and still keep it under that dock, next to the dock piling. Chop, chop, chop. And you've only moved the bait a foot to a foot and a half. Now, if you do that with one of these, it's going to glide 3 feet. So different purpose, different way to fish. Now, you can use these, so throw it around particular targets. Oftentimes, the fish's mood will dictate which they want. Sometimes they want that slower meandering, and then maybe you don't chop it. Or maybe you chop it, but you chop it slower. Spawning fish, for instance. Ain't that a bitch? Spawning fish, for instance, do not like fish, predators, or other things hanging out over their beds when they're spawning. And post-spawn fish as well. If they're guarding fry, they are not going to like that guy hanging out over the top of their babies. What I was going to get to earlier about rods, this here, iRod Gen 3 764C. Okay, it's a heavy rod, but it's got a very moderate bend. Okay, it bends way down into the rod. It's called a light flip and junk rod. Junk rod because it covers lots of things. And here is one of those tweener baits. This is a new bait out on the market, Trick Shad by Bucca baits. Okay, this is the ABS model, 6-inch. You can see they're really not overly big. Let me grab this here. There you'll see in my hand. It's not an overly big bait. It is a 6-inch bait. Good looking bait. If you're starting out glide baiting, don't want to make a huge investment, this is a good one to try. Maybe one of these, maybe one of the Chimera shads or one of the Chad shads. And if you don't know what color to get, bone. Bone's always a good default color, but you see how realistic that looks, right? Great bait. I think they're shit 30 or 40 bucks. They're not much. What I do recommend, if you get one of these, and you don't even need to throw this one on the 764. You could throw this on like a 734, 754, anything like that, right? Any of your medium heavy to heavy jig rods. The nice thing about this iRod is it has a moderate bend, so it bends deeper down the rod. So it's better for, what I meant was it's better for treble hook baits. than some of those others, because if the rod's too stiff and it's not absorbing when the fish is thrashing, sometimes we lose those fish. Some other ones that you could start with, like I said, was the S-Waver. The Baitsanity is much more reasonably priced than the slide swimmer, and in my opinion, the 9-inch anyway, I think the glide on it is better than the slide swimmer. That's me, just my opinion. Don't send the mafia after me. Now, line's gonna vary depending on, first of all, I'm not a braid guy on swim baits. Line's going to vary depend on what bait I'm fishing and where I'm fishing it, but it's going to vary between 15 and 20 pounds. Okay, something like that. Gan Craft, and look folks, all of these are going to perform at their best till you get into the big baits with lighter line. So 16, if I can get away with it, most of the time I can on this. It's an open water glide. The same thing's gonna go for that trick shad, right? Smaller bait, lighter bait, don't need to have real heavy line. The Chimera shad, you're getting up there a little bit in weight, probably close to 3 ounces. Depends on what you're fishing it around. But the chop style baits aren't as affected by the pound test. Okay, they are affected, of course, but not like the glides, okay? Because you got to remember that it's dragging that line through the water. Well, if all we're trying to do is chop and turn that bait, chop, that line's just moving 8 inches, right? 10 inches, one side to the other. You can get away with a little heavier line. And then if you can get your hands on them, probably one of the greats is that DRT Tiny Clash. And you won't find that color. I painted that one. I had a color I didn't like, and that's what I came up with. They're about $100. The cool thing about the DRTs is they come with multiple tails. They come with lips, so you can put lips in them. You can take them out. You can see I have them out. So there's a lot of different ways you can fish it. So it's a little more universal. Again, that DRT is going to be around in that 3 ounce range, probably a little bit under, but those things will turn on themselves. I mean, glide baits are a great way to catch big fish. You'll catch smaller fish. Bass don't have a mirror to look into. They don't know how big they are, and when they want something, they try to eat it. Sometimes it's rather funny, but this is a great time of year to get some confidence in glide baits. One last thing we'll go over before we shut her down and the average angler gets his butt back in the house and gets some more rest. Where are some places to fish these baits? Points, right? I like going down the sides of points. Cast into it, bring it out. If there's no cover, I'm going to use a wide glide. And one way I really like to do it is cast out to deeper water and work it towards the bank. It's a little different, something a lot of people aren't doing. Particularly coves or points around spawning areas. You've got to remember those fish are going to start migrating. For those of you that don't have the COVID, you're probably going to get to go out and fish this weekend, which have a blast, because from what I can see, things should be really good with the weather we've had the past few days. And I'm bummed that I'm not going to be able to go, but it just wouldn't be the smart thing for me to do. If you got dirtier water, a lot of these glide baits are silent. The Sneaky Pete's, right? Like the gold here. The Sneaky Pete's are noisy. First of all, it's got big rattles inside. You're going to see we're kind of a tweener here, right? With the tail. Goes further than a glide. But it's going to make noise. Would be one of my choices in dirtier water. We're not talking mud, but we're talking water that is, you know, a foot or less, 2 feet or less. You still want some clarity. And look, if you want to try swim baits, you don't want to spend a lot, go look at the Savage Gear stuff. And these ones, I will tell you, catch fish. It's a 3D Shine Glide. Okay, this is the 5 1/4 inch. First thing I will tell you, These ones cast terrible. They tumble over themselves like a football. The bigger ones are very good. $20 range, and those are the bigger ones, is the ones that you see Greg Blanchard fishing. Okay, they get bit, they perform really well, and they're priced right. I'm Sean, the Average Angler. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Got any questions, drop them below. We'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.